is a phenomenal time in the combat sports world. I feel like I say that every week, but this 2-week stretch here, honestly, this month, this first quarter of the year is really driving it home. And it started with Naoya Inoue on Friday night. It continued with WWE's Saturday night's main event. It rolls on this week with Monday Night Raw, and it builds up to the crescendo of David Benavidez is back. Israel Adesanya is back, and the Royal Rumble is back this weekend. We're breaking it all down here on Couch Potato Diary. Let's start with some boxing. The monster, Naoya Inoue, lives up to his name on Friday morning as he knocks out Yi Jun Kim in the 4th round. My first note, he is so good. The accuracy that he throws every punch with, and it's easy power. There's no loading up on anything, but it's just the way that he is built and the tight punches that he is able to throw is exceptional. And that power that he has for a guy who started at 108 pounds. I was 108 pounds when I was 9, probably less than that. Like, he is, the power that he can have going from 108 to 114 to 122 now is otherworldly and should be studied. If this were a movie, it would be okay. Guys at that weight class don't knock guys out like this. But he's doing it to everybody, and everything is accurate. It is pinpoint perfection from him. The one thing I need to remember next time from a gambling standpoint, my guy's a slow starter. And so those trying to find some value on that one, we do end up hitting on under... we got the exact round right that the finish was going to get into, but we tried 4 before that, and it didn't really work. So came out, I think, breaking even on that one. But he is not a quick starter. He is going to let you kind of work a few things out and see, okay, where is this attack that I'm going to do coming from? And I thought that was an opportunity for Kim to try to take advantage. And we saw him, he would have moments. He would have a couple like ping, bang, boom. Okay, here he comes. Here we go. Didn't do anything else after that. It's like, okay, well, why? Like, it's target practice at this point. And he's trying to open up in a way because what you're assuming is you are the 11th ranked contender and he is fighting in his home country again in Japan, and he is expected to just run right through you. So you think he's going to come out and just be super aggressive and just be the monster and just try to pound you down. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to counter. And that doesn't really come. And Inoue is waiting to counterpunch a little bit. And so you just get this kind of standoff. And for Kim, that is an excellent way to survive rounds. That is no way to pull off an upset when you're plus 1,600 as an underdog. And so I thought he fought the perfect way to lose that fight. And it ends up going away. And he gets kind of lulled into it. And then he tries to break Inoue out of his shell. Like, hey, come on. And then skadoosh. And the night is done. And he is up there looking at the lights. So again, like we built up Inoue throughout all of last week. A lot of that coverage, stands, right? Like the resume has grown by 1, but with all due respect to Kim, not a significant one. And the pound for pound rankings, we're going to do it again on Wednesday because, you like the content, but they're not changing a whole lot. Inoue goes from 1 to 1. Like, that's not altering things all that much. So a lot of it kind of stays the same because this one, when we got to Friday last week, or Thursday, I guess in this case, to break down it and preview it, I was like, well, this guy's the best knockout puncher in the world, and he's facing the number 11th ranked guy for one of the 4 belts that he has. How do we think this is going to go? And so then the fight plays out, and it was, how did you think it was going to go? He did what he was supposed to do. He went out, he got hit a couple of times and then recognized where his openings were, took advantage, and finished brilliantly. I do think, like, what is next for this guy? And we'll do more of this as the week goes on. What's the next fight to make for Naoya Inoue? But, like, for now, it needs to be bigger, right? It needs to feel like a bigger deal. It needs to be a bigger thing. But the thing is, like, at 31, he's a pound for pound number 1 in my books. If he wants to go out and just keep knocking suckers out in arenas across Japan in his home country for the rest of his life, fill your boots, man. You're doing it. You got my attention. It's working. But if we want to turn this guy into a real superstar, then it should be happening at T-Mobile Arena or Vegas or, begrudgingly, Saudi Arabia, or one of those locations to get those fights going and to get this guy really into that big time discussion. So the next fight for him, we're not going to say who it should be yet because still got to work through a bit of that, but it should feel bigger than this. I was thinking about this, like, how do we build this guy up? And look, like the YouTube numbers on this fight for us here at Couch Potato, compared to our other stuff, it did pretty well. It wasn't Fury Usyk or Canelo, but it was above an average week for us with all of that stuff with him. So there is some attention being paid on this cat, but it's not nearly what it should be from a mainstream perspective. I'm on Sportsnet 960. They know me as the combat guy. Name didn't come up once this week when I was on there a couple of times, and probably not going to come up when I'm back on there today. Like he is not a mainstream star right now here in North America. And I do think there is a little bit of elitism when it comes to, well, we need to make him a bigger star. It's like, well, I don't know, man. He's probably rich. He's a two-division undisputed champion, and he gets to fight in his hometown all the time and knock a bunch of guys out and build up an incredible resume. So what star do you need to make when he's doing these things? But it's just, like, selfishly, I would love it. And so I'm trying to think, like, what do we do to get this guy into a bigger stratosphere? The one thing, and it's weird to talk about this in a boxing sense, we need to get another video game out here. Why have we gone like a full generation and a bit with no new boxing game? Fight Night Champion was fine, but a real legit boxing game. I feel like if you get this guy on there and just like float out a couple videos, like, hey, this guy knocking people out, like he feels like you make him like the '04 Michael Vick of boxing games and try to rocket the star up that way. Especially if he's going to be sticking around in Japan. Also, the Eddie Hearn comment saying like, oh, well, he should be knocked out of the pound-for-pound rankings because he didn't fight my guy. He's just fighting people that nobody have heard about. He needs to fight my guy that nobody has heard about. It's the lower weight classes. Very, like, the fact that he has been able to break through in this way, very few guys really get to do that. And so, any suggestion that he is ducking guys at this point is asinine. The amount of weight class jumps that he has made and champions that he has fought is absurd. So to consider any thought that in a way is ducking guys, you miss me with that. It's not the case in any way, shape, or form. So that was the big story in boxing last week. What's coming up this week? Well, we have the return of someone who is right on the cusp of superstardom. Let's keep the boxing conversation going, looking at the fight this week with Benavidez against Morrell Jr. David Benavidez is back in the boxing ring this weekend as he is looking to put his undefeated record on the line when he takes on David Morrell Jr. As they fight for the regular WBA light heavyweight championship. So what's on the line in this one this weekend? Well, obviously, the regular WBA light heavyweight championship. But there is a lot more than that on the line for both of these guys. A lot of our focus this week is on David Benavidez, and rightfully so. But there is a lot to focus on with Morrell Jr. as well. We will start with Benavidez, though, who is looking to break into superstardom. He feels like he has been one fight away from being a superstar in boxing for a really long time now. And he has been so close, he just hasn't had the right opponent. And that right opponent has been there a couple of times, and it should be Canelo, and it just hasn't happened. And we can talk about what that means on a Canelo side, but for Benavidez, it has meant that he is just squished up against a ceiling right now, trying to break through into that stardom. I don't think Morrell is the one that gets him there either. I think Morrell Jr., like we're going to talk about in a second, I think people are sleeping on this cat. I think that this is a really, really interesting fighter in light heavyweight and maybe beyond. But I also think that this isn't the big name to get Benavidez into that superstar stratosphere. The one thing with him, though, is that this is the fight that gets him that next fight, that gets him into this stratosphere. Most of the assumption is that he is going to face the winner of the Beterbiev-Bivol fight that is happening a little bit later on in Saudi Arabia this month. I guess technically next month. By the time that you watch the fight, it'll be this month. Late February, that fight is going to take place. So this fight, it doesn't rocket him into superstardom, but it finally gets him that opportunity that he has been clamoring for that real legitimate pound for pound level fighter that he can go out and try to showcase his skills against and see if he can turn himself into a star. Because if he gets that one and he wins it, then I would assume Canelo is next, because then he's holding the belts that Canelo really wants to round out the legacy. On the other side of it, David Morrell Jr., this is not last fight week where we were talking about Inoue. Oh, and by the way, Kim, Morrell Jr. is a really interesting fighter. 27 years old, out of Cuba. He was unstoppable as an amateur. 130 wins, 5 losses. Amateur boxing, it certainly has some warts and some weird wrinkles and stuff like that. But still, you could put him you fight 135 times against anybody. Someone's going to slip a punch in there a couple times. You would think 130 wins is ridiculous. But now he is a pro. And he's an undefeated pro at 11-0 and 9 knockouts. But it's only 11 fights. So you are looking at someone who is still very new in their career, who has kind of rocketed up a number of different boards. He's already won championships at 2 different weight classes. And there's only 3 of his fights as a professional that haven't had championship stakes attached to it, which is probably part of a bigger conversation around boxing, if we are being honest with ourselves. But there is still a real, I don't want to say rocket ship, but I feel like there is a real lack of discussion around this guy. And like, you look at it, and I mean, only a few of the guys who he has fought even have Wikipedia pages. And even those, like, only a couple of them have pictures. Like, this isn't a long line of stellar pound-for-pound greats that he has stepped into the squared circle with by any stretch of the imagination. This is the biggest fight of his career, both in terms of attention and talent faced and all of those different things. Like, there's no one on the level or close to, there's no one 2 levels below Benavidez on the resume for Morrell. But still, to have a couple of different championships in a couple of different weight classes with an 11-0 record and 9 wins by knockout and in 11 professional fights, there's something big here. So again, this isn't like Morrell has a chance here. If he loses this fight, it is expected. That is the result that most people are anticipating from this fight, is that someone's has to go, and it's probably going to be his. But he has a chance as well to work his way toward superstardom. He is a few steps away from superstardom, but he can get into that conversation with even just a good performance here this weekend against David Benavidez. So one guy is fighting for the opportunities that he has deserved for a long time, while another is just fighting for the attention to maybe one day get into that spotlight. It is a very, very intriguing fight in my mind coming up this weekend. It is not the only combat sport that has a very interesting fight coming up on Saturday, as the former middleweight champion of the world and someone who certainly had a claim as being the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC is back, and I would say in a must-win situation this weekend. We don't often give the 15-second intro for fight nights, but that's what we have here this weekend, as Israel Adesanya is back for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, fighting in Saudi Arabia against Nassourdine Imavov in a very interesting fight in the middleweight division. For Israel Adesanya, what is on the line this weekend? It is a fight to stay relevant if you're Israel Adesanya. He has lost 2 straight fights for the first time since the end of his kickboxing career. He's lost 3 of his last 4, but still has all the attention of a superstar. And I think still has all the talent of a superstar. But he is now facing a must-win, in my opinion. A loss here, and it's over. The dreams of championships again, I think, are done. The dreams of mega fights are done. Honestly, I think a loss here this weekend, depending on how it goes, but a loss here this weekend, and Adesanya is closer to the GFL than he is a championship opportunity. This is like lights on bright, come in clutch. You honestly need a victory here in a gigantic way. He is a big enough name. Relevant is a bit of a overstatement here, probably. Probably going to be used maybe a little bit, I'm not going to say clickbaity, because I don't think it's that extent or anything like that, but because he is hip, and because he has the resume, and he has the charisma, and he has all these different things, he's going to be relevant, whatever. But if you want to stay relevant for a championship, if you want to legitimately have these mega fights and have them feel like mega fights instead of you're just the veteran B-side, then you need to win this fight. And honestly, it kind of needs to be impressively. Like, we need to have glimpses of the old Israel Adesanya back. And I am not talking about the guy who would just dance around for 5 rounds and not a whole lot is happening because he's playing this chess, and then one big boom, and oh, look at that, he's still awesome. This needs to be a real dominant performance from Israel Adesanya to get that name back into those conversations. But it will not be easy, as he is going up against Nassourdine Imavov, who, this is a big step up for him. Not his first, though. He had a big step up early in his career where he took on Sean Strickland. He lost that fight, but since then, it's 3-0 with 1 no contest. And the wins getting more and more impressive each time up. So this is a big opportunity against a big name. And while we are talking about like the struggles of Adesanya and his need to stay relevant, this is still a name that if Imavov gets the win, that people are going to get excited about. And people, okay, this guy's beaten real opponents. This is a legitimate challenger here now at 185 pounds. This is someone who is deserving, like, I don't think a win here gets him a title shot, but a win here gets him either into an eliminator or gets him into an eliminator, if you know what I mean. So there is a lot on the line for this one. An impressive one, I think, really can rocket him up the rankings in the UFC. It's such an interesting fight for both guys because they both needed to get into title contention with some pretty major questions about both of them coming in. And even if they win, they'll rocket into that conversation, but there's going to be a lot of questions still remaining for the victor. And for the loser, it is back to the drawing board in a big-time way with a lot of difficult questions needing to be asked. Going into the co-main event, Shara Bullet Magomedov is back, and it's been an interesting story. Obviously, he has a unique look, and he has a style that can be very fan-friendly. They haven't put him in any fight that would test him, though. You know, and so, right, like, it's been cute so far, right? Like, he's gone out, he's done a couple spins, and he's knocked guys out, and he has his personality, and there's this draw to him that everyone is just infatuated by. But now it's a test. Now it's a real test because you're taking on Michael Venom Page. This is a significant step up in competition for him. It is a fight that if he wins it, then all of a sudden, I think we have to start taking this guy at least a little seriously in the middleweight division. For sure, fight anyone who can get a takedown. But he is entering at least into conversations that I previously thought were not going to be reserved for him. I thought he was always just going to be, you put him on one of these cards and have him be a really fun fight to kick things off. He is the WCW Cruiserweight. He's going to go out there and do that. But he's picking up these wins in such emphatic fashion. And now, again, MVP is a real guy. And if you get a win here, we start having to talk about you in ways that I didn't think we were going to with him. And the other part of it too, it's a really fun style matchup. Like this fight, I don't see a way where it sucks. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then you have Michael Venom Page coming off of a bit of an eye-opening loss against Ian Machado Gary. How does he respond to adversity like that? He has lost twice before in his career, before that fight. One time, he beat a guy by injuring his leg. And the other one, he beat a guy with a flying knee knockout. So he is pretty good at responding to these losses, but he hasn't had to do it in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he hasn't had to do it against a kid a decade younger than him who has been a knockout artist so far. So for MVP, a win here, it gets him back on track. We get that rocket launched up again, and all of a sudden, this guy is heading into some really interesting conversations in the middleweight division. And again, it is a perfect style fight for him to try to get back into championship contention, or at least conversations at middleweight. It's going to be a really, really fun fight and so much fun to watch. It is a spotlight that both guys really deserve, and the winner is going to get, I think, an opportunity that is very fitting of the talents that they have at 185. So I'm saying the word a lot, but it really is, the word of the day is intriguing. A lot of intriguing fights coming out of the UFC and the world of boxing. We now go to the WWE. They are getting ready for the Royal Rumble, but first, we had to go to San Antonio, Texas for Saturday night's main event. Let's break it down. Nostalgia was running wild, even if there was another form of old WWE/F lore that wasn't running wild. If you notice, someone was noticeably absent from the show. Saturday night's main event went down in San Antonio, Texas. Let's break it all down. The night starts with Rhea Ripley taking on Nia Jax for the Women's World Championship. We get the Joe Tessitore intro. The guy is unbelievable. Like, boxing, he's great. When I'm watching him on wrestling, it feels like I'm watching Fight Night. And he was too over the top for Monday Night Football. And there's no such thing as too over the top for WWE, right? Like, he is the perfect, I think, for WWE. And he's got the voice, and we are live from San Antonio. And it's just, he is, all of it. I love every bit of it. Love every bit of it. And then, like, he does the thing with Jesse the Body Ventura, and it's fun and all of that. And then, like, the night starts, and we get the old neon, like, Saturday night main event looking, like, microphone, like it would be at MSG, Beautiful touch. Love that sort of a thing. We only get it for a little bit because Nia attacks Rhea Ripley to stop. And then this match was... It wasn't like this masterclass of whatever. And I said going in, like, I'm not all that drawn to this match. And then they started it, and they got me because it was the perfect way to do it. This wasn't okay, this is deep ring psychology. You know what? We are two very strong human beings. We're going to hit some big shit on each other, and it's going to be fun. So you get, like, Rhea hitting a code red. Nia comes back. It's a leg drop off the top rope. Rhea Ripley hits a power bomb. Nia is doing a Uranagi, and then she hits an Annihilator, and Rhea is knocked down because it's Rhea on the floor. She's going for an Annihilator. Rhea knocks her off the top rope and then goes up to the top rope, and it's a flying crossbody to the floor. Like, it was a video game, and that was the whole night. Did you get, like, would any of these matches have been the best match on a Dynamite on a random Wednesday? Nah, not at all. But if you want to try to get someone who is still channel flipping in 2025 or scrolling through Peacock or internationally YouTube, and you just want to see, like, oh, hey, wrestling's on. Look at that. Oh, and Jesse the Body. I remember him. Saturday night's main event. I've heard of that before. Let's see what this whole thing is about. This was a way to get those casual fans in. You told enough of the stories to get people interested, and then you just video gamed them. You spot monkeyed the hell out of it. And it was it was perfect. Exactly what you kind of want for this sort of a showcase thing. You only got 10 minutes. Let's make it a hard 10 minutes and just go to town with it. They get back in the ring. Nia hits another Annihilator with Rhea Ripley on her stomach. She goes for a second one. Rhea gets up, hits the electric chair, gets the riptide, gets the win. It's a sprint of a match. It's a really fun way to start off. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it kept Nia strong, but Rhea Ripley looks great, even though, like, if we're going, like, spot for spot, she was on the wrong end of it, but still gets a win. So I thought it was great. Intercontinental title match is up next, and it is Sheamus against Braun Breaker. Jesse the Body Ventura is on commentary for this one. He maybe got a little sideways in his commentary there when we get to a certain 2 count that happened. That was definitely a 2 count, and he thought it was 3. But he's him, right? And it is the old school shtick. And they made a real stretch of a comparison where, well, I was the Raw GM, or I was at the show where Sheamus won this battle royal that really kickstarted his career. And, like, he was the special GM on that night, and he did commentary with Vince McMahon, which was conveniently not brought up on this episode. But that felt like a bit of a stretch, but at least it got Jesse engaged. And that's really all you want from this one. I heard one critique that Corey Graves would have been better in this spot with Jesse than Pat McAfee would have been, and that's probably true. McAfee, though, he just brings such an energy with everything that I feel like, again, he is kind of perfect in the role that he is, and we can have the bigger Graves-McAfee debate at a different time. I think they both are very valuable in their own way. But in this one, Ventura was himself, and we get a really fun match. Again, Breaker hits a spear off of Sheamus, who is leaping onto the stairs, and again, this whole night, everyone is just going for it. And we're driving home as the match is going on the importance of this bout for Sheamus, because he is looking to wrap up the career Grand Slam. This is the only thing that he hasn't accomplished. And so this is it is adding legitimacy to the Intercontinental title. It is adding legitimacy to Braun Breaker, and it's adding legitimacy to this feud while telling you, like, just kind of subtly that Sheamus is freaking awesome. And he's won all these championships, so this is a guy you should take seriously. I just think in one little storytelling device, they have enhanced everything involved in it, and it's been great. You get a brogue kick, Braun just gets his foot on the rope, and Ventura loses his mind. Oh, that was for 3. Like, he just lost it, and it became the story of the match for him. And so I don't know if he got told that this was going to be a thing, or if he just went pro wrestler and was like, well, looked like it was going to be 3 from where my angle was, and I hate it. And I mean, like, a lot of times you go back and we romanticize a lot of that. There are some times where there were a lot of logistical gymnastics that were needed to explain away some of the things that they did and that he said a lot of times, but that's the heel. You lock it in. The problem is Sheamus is the babyface in this match, so it was weird. It was weird, but I don't think it took away too much from the match, although I've talked about it a lot, so maybe it did. Braun Breaker hits another spear, and he gets the win. This match was fantastic. This feud has been excellent. These two obviously have a fantastic chemistry together. It has built up Braun Breaker in a really strong way. It has built up the Intercontinental title in a strong way, and it has really got Sheamus going. He's never been irrelevant in WWE, but this has been just a nice little boost in this kind of last-ish act of Sheamus's career that's been very, very impressive. So I've really enjoyed this storyline, and I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Then we get the contract signing. It's Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. And the best part of this entire feud has been Kevin Owens' shirts. Like, you think back to the Canadian son of a whatever it was, like that perfect. And then on Friday, he wears a Naomi shirt to go out there and wrestle Jimmy Uso. And now this one, it's Cody sucks eggs. Like, the little shirts that he had, brilliant. Like, he is so good in this role. And he is saying that he deserves what Cody has been given. And this Saturday, he's going to take it from him because Cody got all upset about things and just left. While Kevin Owens has to stick through and he's had to deal with all these adversities and he's still here. So Shawn Michaels says that KO sounds jealous. Kevin then says, what are you talking about? Cody left when things get hard. I'm making the Winged Eagle title way more relevant than you ever did, HBK. Again, he's saying that Kevin Owens also won't lose his smile. So we're hitting a couple of the low-hanging fruits here, but it was what it needed to be. It was a little less Cody than I was expecting because it's NBC, but Cody, honestly, Cody's over, right? Like, if you are tuning in to Saturday night's main event and you were just asked, like, okay, who's a wrestler right now? It's, that Cody guy. Like, he won I saw it all over Instagram and TikTok and all these different things because Undertaker and The Rock and all these things. So you know who Cody is. Cody is over. The point is to try to get Kevin Owens over as this kind of dastardly whatever. And he got himself over in the most perfect way possible. So Cody doesn't need to do a whole lot right now to get himself over. He's there. And Kevin Owens was himself in the best way. And so it makes him very hateable for this upcoming Saturday. And now, after it's all said and done, they hang up the belts. KO goes after HBK. Cody gets the super kick, and then Shawn Michaels gets another sweet chin music, and the crowd gets to go home happy. It's a little bit of a beat up on Kevin Owens, but it's what we said going into Saturday night's main event. You almost take KO for granted because he could lose his next 100 matches. And he is still a phenomenal performer in the ring and good enough as a character that you will forget that immediately and he could challenge for the world title going for his 101st loss in a row. He is that good. And so if you were trying, like if they did this to Gunther, I would be upset. But Kevin Owens is such a badass that, I know I just said the point was to try to get him over. You still get your guy Shawn Michaels getting a big spot there, and it's great, and you kind of get the comeuppance on the bad guy. I do wonder if we get, like, they don't do the hometown beatdown a whole lot anymore, but I wonder if Kevin Owens, like, leaves Cody bloody on Monday, and, like, you get an impassioned Cody speech, but then you get Kevin Owens, like, kind of get his heat back and really just take it to him on Monday. I think that might be the way to go. Speaking of being left bloody, Braun Strowman taking on Jacob Fatu. Fatu cuts the walking promo. He is excellent. Give this guy everything. Like that. There were sometimes it didn't even make sense, but it's the way he is saying it, and it's the snarl, and it's the whatever. And then I'm gonna beat you from post to post on coast to coast, or on NBC from coast to coast. Like it's those types of things. It is so real. It is so believable. It is so different from everyone else that, like, it is bordering on over the top, but he does it in such a believable way that it's like, yeah, man, I could see if you got into a bar fight tomorrow and you said that thing, be like, yeah, that's a thing people would say. I wouldn't be like, this guy's lost his mind. Be like, no, that's a terrifying thing that you just said as a terrifying human being, and I'm going to leave now. So bye. He is that type of a guy. And then, like, he's just different. And then we go to the match. He hits the suicide dive, where we're doing the Braun Strowman choo-choo train thingy as he's going around. And then on the third one, Fatu catches him, and he puts him back, and it's the Samoan drop. We get him in the ring. He runs and hits Strowman in the face with his butt a bunch of times, tosses the referee out the side. Referee's like, hey, you can't do that. It's a disqualification. I get the last laugh in this, sir. And Jacob Fatu is like, cool, no rules then. Grabs a chair and just starts wailing on security that comes down. He's running over Braun Strowman. Strowman is left laying. Everyone's like, hey, don't stop. And he does a moonsault over all their asses and lands it on Strowman for that and hits the moonsault a bunch. The crowd is chanting one more time. And we have basically just everything we did with Bronson Reed, we have now transitioned it over into the form of Jacob Fatu. And he is doing those things. And the crowd is going nuts for it. And I think we are still supposed to believe that this guy is a heel, but he can be a champion and a number one guy in any way he wants. Heel, babyface, whatever. He is that special. I am over the moon with how perfect I think this guy is as a performer right now. And this is what it was supposed to be. I was fired up for the match. It sucks that we didn't get a whole lot of it, but in terms of getting this guy over to a national audience, this was perfect. And I don't know what the plan is for him with Rumble and all of that, but he needs to look strong for the next little while. And when we are doing this stuff again next year, he needs to either be the one with the championship belt on his shoulder or the one going for it. He is that good. The guy who does have that belt is Gunther. He goes up against Jay for the World Heavyweight Championship. Jay comes out, and again, the entrance, it feels like a star. And you get a good spot early on. Jay gets the super kick. He gets the 2. The crowd is into it. Jay has Gunther down. He hits the Uso splash, and the kick out is a 2.5. And we said the goal of this segment was to get that crowd to bite once on a near fall, and they got him. And it was such a well put together match. And then it was pretty obvious we were rushed for time. And so Jay runs for a spear, and they time it perfectly. Gunther catches him up, powerbomb, boom. Powerbomb again, boom. Powerbomb again, boom. 1, 2, 3, ball game. And so I had 2 goals for this one. It was to make it believable that Jay could win the world title and make Gunther come out of this feeling like a star. I don't think you come out of this with being like, hey, Gunther's the dominant guy right now, because Jacob Fatu almost killed a man with his butt a little bit ago. And like that, like of the people who came out looking like badasses, Gunther is like 4th or 5th on the list. So there's still a little bit of work to be done. The way he carries himself as a character is going to be enough of that. The way he sold after, though, the like, holy shit, this guy almost got me. They made Jey Uso a main eventer here on Saturday night's main event, in my opinion. I think that this was the last one that is like, nope, that guy can win a world title. Before, I don't know if I believe that. Now, I think that there is a chance that they could put him in a world title thing for at least a little bit. Like, they made it believable that he could win it, and so at some point, like, that stays with you now. So, in building up another main eventer in Jey Uso, I think they officially really locked him into that spot. He was great, and it like, he doesn't come across, Gunther doesn't come across as the star, but Jay does. And so overall, for Saturday night's main event, it is a difficult balancing act to walk, because you don't want to just like handhold everyone through all of your stories. Like, well, this is what's going on, and this is why you should care about coming up on Saturday, because we have a premium live event called the Royal Rumble, and the winner of that match gets to take on the champion at WrestleMania. You don't want to be like, hey, by the way, these are the things we got going on. You also don't want it to just be like a breakneck wrestling with 100 different things. And hey, okay, that was cool. What was the point of it? Oh, nothing? Okay, great. They hit, I think, the storytelling parts and the wild, crazy in-ring stuff at almost a perfect balancing point, where I think this accomplished so much. And I think basically everyone who was on this card is now elevated for being on this card. And that's exactly what you want for a Saturday night's main event. And the big thing you want is to get a lot of people talking going into the Royal Rumble. So let's talk as we head toward the Royal Rumble. If you only watch one match every year, the Royal Rumble is a pretty fun one to go with. And it goes down this weekend from Indianapolis, Indiana, the men's and women's Royal Rumbles. So, what are we looking at storyline-wise going into this one? I think the big story around this is how well they have built up the men's Royal Rumble. There are so many possibilities on the men's side. And you go into these years, like I think back to the year that I went to watch WrestleMania, WrestleMania 32. Going into that Royal Rumble, it was like, the story was Roman Reigns and Triple H, basically. And that's what the whole build was going to be. And the title is on the line in this match. And so, because of that, like, it's really down to just a couple of guys. And there are a lot of times where it's like, there's 2 or 3 guys that you can see winning this whole thing. Like last year, it was Gunther, it was Punk, and it was Cody. That was it, really. And so, you get to this point, and where they're at right now, there's so many possibilities that they can go with. And so, like, I feel like, and we'll do this a little bit later on, the list of guys who could win this Royal Rumble and have it conceivably make sense is probably in the double digits. And I just feel like that they have built up this match to where it's like, it is stars going into this bout. And it is really a lot of different storylines would be enhanced by winning the Rumble, obviously, but would also make sense to have someone in the Rumble. When you think like Roman, his pursuit for the championship again. Great way of doing that, winning the Royal Rumble. Sami Zayn, he's talked about how he doesn't need it, but he wants this opportunity because of how the fans have been behind him. Goes out and wins it and faces Kevin Owens at whatever, or Gunther, who he had a WrestleMania match with last year. That's something that I predicted in around SummerSlam. I think you could still do it. You want to get Seth Rollins back on top? He could win that, and I think it fits with his storyline of trying to wrestle WWE back from the Bloodline guys. And like Cody teamed with Roman Reigns at some point, you can draw that line, which means you can draw Drew there. CM Punk is always going to be around the championship picture. So there is that. Honestly, given his performance in the Royal or at Saturday Night's main event, Jacob fought too. And then you get this jealousy, like it's the Batista Triple H thing where it's like Solo is the leader and he loves Solo, but now I got this opportunity to win the championship. You had opportunities to win the championship. You didn't do it. I can do it now. And so I think there are so many different storylines where you could include the world title in it and it would make sense. And so that's why there are all these moving parts in this match, and it is so intriguing to see where they are going to go. The problem is, with all of that being said, the women's match feels like an afterthought. And so you can try to make a bit of a sprint here in this last week, but I don't think it's going to work. And you really need to get this one feeling kind of special. And so I'm anticipating some surprises. Obviously, Charlotte's going to be back. I would assume Becky is going to be in this one. We're probably going to get some TNA people in both. But I think that this needs to be a just wild, crazy, burn it down Royal Rumble to kind of reinvigorate some interest here, because this Rumble has definitely felt like an afterthought right now. Now, part of that, it's feeling like an afterthought because you have a new project as a champion in Tiffany Stratton. You have a dominant champion in Rhea Ripley going up against a former dominant champion in Nia Jax. Like, there are stories on the women's side. There's not enough. And I do think that they need to kind of ramp that up a little bit with the women's Rumble here this weekend. Also, Cody against Kevin Owens. We talked about it a bit before. It has been great. They have built it up so well. And, like, Kevin Owens is the perfect heel for Cody Rhodes, and they've been trying to find it for a bit, and they haven't been able to get it, and now this has finally felt like obviously, when we're thinking of Cody Rhodes' feuds in his time in WWE, the story, and the Roman Reigns and the Bloodline and all of that, that is going to be first. But this one is, at least, like, of the championship run, this is the defining storyline so far, and they've built it up legitimately. I think they've done great, and I think, honestly, they have got it to a point with Kevin where I think you can at least tell a story with it if he wins it. And it will probably have to come with some interference from The Rock or CM or someone along those lines to really throw things off for Cody. But I do think that there is a way that you can tell it. Have Kevin Owens be the WWE champion coming out of it and still feel like things are rocketing toward WrestleMania. The other thing that I am really intrigued by is the Motor City Machine Guns against DIY. They get a 2 out of 3 falls match. This has the potential of being the Jeff Hardy, Edge and Christian ladder match that everyone talks about from that No Mercy show, where those two teams hadn't really fully developed as characters yet. And then they went out and stole the show. And this is the type of thing you can do with the Royal Rumble, because you're not trying to draw people in, right? And like the build and the trying to draw people in, it's different when you're not trying to get them to spend $70 on a pay-per-view anymore. But in trying to get people's attention, the Rumble matches have got it, right? Like, hey, you get 2 Royal Rumble matches. Take my money. Sign me up. Oh, and a ladder match. Awesome. And you get 2 really fun tag teams. Who? Okay. Like, they aren't really big stars in the, I think, kind of casual mind. But you have a platform now with these 2 big matches, the Royal Rumbles and the championship match, that these guys can go out and put on a star-making performance. So I think this is the perfect utilization of the Royal Rumble concept, being able to sell a show on its own and get other guys over because of it. So very, very, very good use, I think, of the Royal Rumble. The last real stop before we get to the Royal Rumble is WWE Raw tonight. Yes, SmackDown has 3 hours, but there isn't a whole lot, I think, that really goes down on those shows before the Saturday pay-per-views that gets you really intrigued. So I think tonight is going to be a very interesting night on Monday Night Raw. So what do we need to see? Let's take a look. WWE Raw comes to us from Atlanta, Georgia. It is a couple of days removed from Saturday night's main event and just a few days before the kickoff of WrestleMania season with the Royal Rumble. So what are we expecting on the show this evening? The first one, they teed this up on the first Netflix, and then we really didn't get anything after it. But Roman Reigns said, big thing, January 27th. And we're all anticipating that there's going to be a 2K thing that goes along with it as well. But I'm surprised that we haven't had much of a build for it. And even when you click on the website to see what's going on with the show, you don't get a whole lot there. So, I still think we're going to get it tonight, and I'm very interested at what it is all going to be. And we're going to have a little bit more WWE 2K on Twitch here and on the YouTubes and social media as well as we lead up to the announcement of 2K25 coming out for the WWE. I'm also anticipating a really big Cody promo and a Kevin Owens segment tonight. I do think that while getting super kicked by Shawn Michaels doesn't really take away a whole lot from one's career, I do think that you need to get Kevin Owens back on the this guy's a badass train. And that only happens with a big segment tonight. So I think you get Cody cut a really impassioned promo, because we didn't get a lot from him on Saturday, and really put the finishing touches on the build that has been fantastic. And then I think Kevin Owens has to come out and just beat that poor guy down and have that be the final visual going into Saturday at the Royal Rumble. The main event is Sami Zayn against Drew McIntyre. Really intriguing match, because you're slowly building up Sami to this world title picture, but Drew has killed him lately. And if you do that again, I think there's, again, a story you can tell. It's basically the exact same as they did last year, where, like, this guy, no, I want this title. I really want this title. Like, do you? And you try to build it up, and then eventually it's I need this opportunity. And that's what they got with the Intercontinental title thing with Gunther. You basically have to try to tell that whole thing again here with Sami if we are going to be building him up into a world title thing. So I think that there is a lot of intrigue about how you handle Sami and Drew coming off of a roll-up loss in his last bout, and trying to keep that character strong. Tag team titles on the line. It is the War Raiders taking on the Judgment Day. I would anticipate this being just an absolute squash match and just making the War Raiders look awesome and going about things that way. Logan Paul, he is making his Raw debut tonight, and I have in my notes here, at least I'll be able to catch up on some fast forwarding, because again, I'm hosting a radio show this evening, and I don't really have a whole lot of time for Logan Paul these days. So that'll be a nice little skip forward as I try to get all caught up on Monday Night Raw. The last one, there has been a lot of talk about Goldberg and Gunther. They did the thing with Gunther in Calgary, where Gunther was like, my favorite wrestler of all time was Goldberg. And then they were in Atlanta, and Goldberg said, I was kidding, you sucked. And now they're back in Atlanta. And Goldberg has talked about how this is his last year, and he is going on the retirement tour. And a lot of us are anticipating that begins with a night in Atlanta leading up to WrestleMania. And then we're assuming that because there's that back and forth with him and Gunther, that is the way that you go. And so I would anticipate, if we're getting anything Goldberg related, it is going to be on the show tonight. And honestly, I've talked about the Sami Zayn, the opportunity of getting Sami the world title and how to maximize that kind of a situation. I think a way to do it is, or a way that you could do it, is this feud starts here. And then WWE is in Toronto in March for the Elimination Chamber. And Sami is, as they say, over like Grover, up here in the True North Strong and Fierce. And so you get Sami in a hometown spot, the crowd is behind him, and then it is like Eddie Guerrero in 2004 at No Way Out against Brock Lesnar, and they probably will leave that part out of the comparison. But you have Goldberg was sitting ringside, he speared Brock, Eddie gets the frog splash and the win. I think you could do almost like beat for beat that same thing. Sami is hanging in there, and he's this underdog, and he's battling through all these shots, and then the referee is down, Goldberg comes in, and it's the spear, Gunther staggers to his feet, haluva kick, 1, 2, 3, Sami gets the title win in Toronto. I think you could legitimately do that with Goldberg and Gunther. And so again, we talked about before how a number of different stories could include the world title. A bunch of them are also strong enough, or can be built strong enough, that they don't need it either. So they are in a very interesting spot with that world championship right now. And if you just wanted to have the moment of moments in Toronto building up to WrestleMania, you could absolutely do that and set up a really good feud with Goldberg and Gunther. So I'm interested to see if that build starts today. All right, another marathon stream here on Twitch today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Those of you who have stuck around throughout. Shout out Spy Canuck, who popped into the chat for the first time. Thank you so much for coming in and saying hi today. Shout out to Toxic, who is always here and always very much appreciated. And shout out to everyone else who has been tuning in. The next stream is coming up here on Tuesday. It is going to be at 10 a.m. It is going to be a double dip as we do the Tuesday and the Wednesday podcast here on twitch.tv/primetimepk. And then if you miss any of it or you just want to hear it again, you can check it out in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. Just search for Couch Potato Diary. One more time, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for your great Calgary swag. Check out swiftenergy.gg. How do I get through 2 hours and 17 minutes of podcasting? It's with them. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Thank y'all so much for hanging out today. Let's chat again tomorrow, shall we? Have a great rest of your day, everybody.